For college students, most nights end in partying and hungover mornings, but for these students, the night didn't end. It stopped. In November 2022, the quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho became the center of a nightmare no one could explain. 4 college students were found dead inside their home. And even now, what happened inside that house doesn't fully make sense. Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, Dylan Mortensen, and Bethany Funk shared a rental home close to their university campus. A 3-story house with 6 bedrooms, 2 on each floor. From the outside, it looked like any other student house, but inside, it was full of love. These girls didn't just share a living space, they were close. The kind of closeness that turns roommates into family. On the night of November 12th, the house was alive. Like a typical college Saturday. Music, movies, and conversations overlapping each other. Some had gone out partying, while others stayed in. Xana had her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, over. By all accounts, everything was normal. Everyone who went out was back before 2 a.m. Some tipsy, some tired, but everyone was back in one piece. The night was winding down, or so they thought. Around 4 a.m., something changed. There were noises, not ones loud enough to wake the entire house or clear enough to understand. And Dylan Mortensen heard it. Dog barking, muffled sounds, a male voice, low and distant. The kind of sounds that don't immediately signal danger, but doesn't feel right either. Too tired to fully process it, she opened her door to check. Finding nothing amiss, she went back to bed. Still uneasy, she checked the second time, but the noises had ceased. However, the silence that followed felt wrong, so she peeked one last time. Then, Dylan saw him. A masked figure dressed in black, walking toward her. She froze, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. Then, something even stranger happened. The intruder did not attack her. He simply walked past her like she wasn't there. Still in shock, she rushed back into her room and locked the door. Minutes later, Dylan convinced herself that the whole encounter wasn't real. She concluded it could have been the exhaustion or the alcohol in her system, because the alternative was too hard to accept. So she went downstairs to Bethany's room. They talked for a while, long enough to feel normal again. And eventually, they fell asleep. When they woke up, something felt off. The house had never been that quiet during the day. There should have been footsteps or doors opening, even the clatter of pots in the kitchen. But there was nothing. Just silence. Concerned, Dylan and Bethany started calling out, but there was no answer. They tried several times, still nothing. That's when the feeling changed. Because now, it wasn't just silence. It was the memory of the night before. Panicking, Dylan urged them not to leave the room. If someone had been in the house. What if they still were? So instead, they called friends for help. When one of them arrived, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed a kitchen knife just in case. Then he made his way towards the second floor. And the moment he got there, his heart dropped. What he saw was no longer a speculation. It was real, and was too horrific to put into words. Shaken, he ran downstairs and screamed loud enough to get everyone out immediately. And in the middle of that chaos, Bethany dialed 911. Xana and Ethan were found first. Ethan in bed and Xana on the floor in the middle of the room. Both stabbed multiple times with a sharp weapon. The scene was brutal. The police moved to the third floor only to find even more horror. Kaylee and Madison were found in the same bed, also killed. By the time investigators stepped back and looked at the full picture, it didn't get any clearer. 4 people were dead, in one house, at the same time. And somehow, 2 occupants were left untouched. Nothing about it made sense. If this was random, why spare a witness? If this was targeted, then who exactly was the target? But only one person could answer these questions, and that was who they had to find. The killer. So investigators thoroughly combed through the house. No room or surface was left unchecked. They picked the crime scene apart, searching for anything that would point them in the right direction. And then they found it. A tan leather knife sheath, carelessly left behind. But there was a problem. The knife, possibly the murder weapon, was gone. Then came the footage. A neighbor's camera captured a white Hyundai Elantra sedan circling the house again and again that morning, like it was watching or waiting only to finally speed off around 4:20 a.m. At that moment, that car became an important piece in the investigation, because whoever was driving it was around the property at the time of the murder. But in a town full of cars, that could have been anyone. Luckily, they caught a break. Around the same time, DNA found on the knife sheath was run through genetic tracing. It didn't immediately identify a suspect, but it narrowed the field. Soon, a family line began to form. The genetic markings pointed at the Kohberger family, and when investigators followed that lead, it led to one person: 30-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger, a Washington State University PhD student studying criminology. A brilliant but socially awkward 30-year-old who studied serial killers and just wrote a paper on crime scene processing. Even more unsettling, Bryan Kohberger owned a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra. Finally, the dots were beginning to connect. On December 30th, 2022, Bryan Kohberger was taken into police custody. Yet the story didn't end there, because what they found next made it far worse. Months earlier, Bryan had purchased a K-bar knife and sheath on Amazon, the exact type found at the crime scene. His phone records told a more incriminating story. Months leading up to the murder, his phone had pinged near the student's home at least 12 times, often late in the night or very early in the mornings. Apparently, Bryan had followed Madison, Kaylee, and Xana on Instagram weeks before the murder. He had also sent them a few messages, though they never responded. Could that have been the reason they were stalked? Moreover, they were not the only ones he followed. Bryan had been known to trail female students and colleagues at the university where he schooled. He often showed up at their homes and workplaces at very odd hours, sometimes even daily, constantly seeking them out, even after they had turned him down. Then, at the time of the murders, his phone went silent, only to come on later, just hours before the bodies were discovered. These details were too consistent to be a coincidence. And it wasn't an impulsive action. It had taken months of detailed planning. While investigators believed it was premeditated, they could only come up with a theory of what had happened. They speculated that Bryan Kohberger had intended to commit the crime, so he bought himself a weapon of choice. Just after 4 a.m. that morning, Bryan had parked behind the property and got in the house through the back door. Madison and Kaylee must have been his first targets as he left the sheath next to Madison's body. There was no evidence of struggle because he had murdered them in their sleep. But on the way down, his plan had to change, because Xana was awake and she fought hard. The multiple stab wounds on her body told a story of resilience. Finally, he went for Ethan. But the biggest plot twist was yet to come. In July of 2025, after claiming not guilty for over 2 years, Bryan Kohberger suddenly took a plea deal. Just before the trial was set to begin, he admitted to committing all 4 murders without contest or explanation. And in return, the death penalty was waived. Instead, he was given 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. However, when he was asked to address the court, he respectfully declined, leaving victims' families without the closure they deserved. But one thing is certain: the lives of Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were taken in the worst possible way, and we would never know why. The scariest part of this story isn't just the crime, it's the fact that we still don't know why it happened. So tell me, what do you think the connection was? Were these victims chosen, or was it random? Did the killer see the witness and spare her, or never noticed her at all? And after everything, do you think justice was truly served? If you're drawn to stories that don't come with easy answers, hit subscribe, because the next one would leave even more unanswered questions.